It was real low. And once that thought of suicide had come into my head, I wasn't then thinking so much about all the depression and the sad stuff before. I was literally just thinking about suicide, and I was letting the thoughts of that snowball, and they were just snowballing from the fear of thinking about it, and like there was this sadness that came with the fact that I knew I was thinking about it. It's kind of like, it's telling you that you don't want to be that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you did want to be that way, or it was normal, you wouldn't be sad.
You wouldn't be sad about it.
Do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
Exactly.
So you're telling yourself that really I don't want to be like this, and that's why then I can't help but cry on the phone to you or something. When I was down, because really I don't want to be that way. I just don't see how to not be that way.
Yeah. After a long struggle with depression, 2 weeks ago, my friend Lee took her own life. For those of you who don't know Lee, she was a traveller, a life lover, and the most genuine, kind and bright soul you will ever meet. Lee is the reason that James and I decided to start recording this podcast last year. At the time, she was sharing her struggles online, and we were just blown away by how brave and honest she was. So this podcast is in memory of Lee, in the hopes that we can continue her advocacy for mental health, carry her torch, and break the stigma of talking about mental health and struggles. And hopefully we can help as many people as possible. So to help spread the word, and in honour of Lee, for anybody out there who needs to, speak up for Lee. So Lee's partner Jordan and her family and friends have set up a GoFundMe in Lee's name. And what they're going to do is set up a foundation to prevent cyberbullying and help people who are struggling with mental health. So we would love it if you would donate to that. But for now, enjoy the podcast and share it with somebody who you think might need it. Welcome to the Brothers Podcast with myself, Craig Holmes, and my good pal,
James O'Hanlon.
You right, mate?
It's the worst time to do that. I had ages, didn't I, before to do that?
You had so much time to prep.
I did. I'm a little nervous. Yes, James O'Hanlon.
There he is, the man, the myth, the legend. So yeah, if you don't know who we are, we've been friends for like 20 years now, I think. We're not actually brothers. But this idea for the podcast came about because we've both sort of discussed our mental health problems over the years. We've both had some really dark times, some extremely dark times that we've helped each other through. And we would take these walks and we have these talks. And then one day we were like, well, this would be great for a podcast because it would probably help other people out, because the things that we talk about are so every day, and sometimes when you're going through it, you think you're the only person. So we were like, let's just get it out there and see what happens. So basically this podcast is for anyone out there who might be suffering right now. It's not a good time with lockdown and stuff like that. So we figured this is the perfect time to get out there. So through hearing our stories and hearing us discuss what we're going through, you might hear a little bit of yourself in us, or you might hear a few little bits that you can take away and maybe they'll help you in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, that's what we're kind of hoping, so that people, because we know what we're going through or what we've been through isn't abnormal. You know what I mean? It's not unusual. And it'd be surprising how much you hear what someone else is doing and you'd be like, oh, that's what I do. And I thought it was just me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping that people get that sense of feeling that they're not on their own, and what they're going through isn't all that sort of like, it is everyone's individual journey and stuff, but you'll be surprised by how unalone you are, and everyone says that, like, oh, you're not alone and all that sort of stuff. But I'm kind of hoping that some of the stuff we talk about will let people know that there are really big similarities and ways in which maybe we can all help each other. Do you know what I mean?
100%, man.
Yeah.
And we always say, like, if you're going through something like that, the easiest thing to do or the best thing to do is to talk to somebody. But that can also be like the hardest step as well. So yeah, the other reason we wanted to do this is so you can listen to our stories. Hopefully we'll make you laugh along the way, because this isn't going to be like all doom and gloom. And then if you need someone to listen to, we will be your brothers.
Yeah, that's what the plan is. We wanted, the idea was to end up with this huge group, this huge, what do we call it? What's the word? A community of
like
brothers.
A tribe,
like a tribe of brothers, where we're all like in the end, we didn't want to stop at just a podcast. We want to, you know, when the world's kind of a bit back to normal, we want to be having these meetups and days out and all these sort of things, you know what I mean? And comfort zone challenges, whatever we got to do, you know?
The last few weeks, which has given us even more motivation to get this going, is we've been exercising together and we've been doing some cold water therapy, which has been mad. So yeah, I suggested to James about 6 weeks ago, I was like, let's go for a workout and then we'll just jump in the sea. And he was like, you fucking mad, mate. But we're literally like addicted to it, aren't we?
Oh, it's so good. I used to be so scared. I was just like, why would you want to put yourself through that?
Yeah.
If it's not fun, why are you doing it? I used to get annoyed seeing people surfing in the cold weather in the UK, and I'd be like, why though? Don't pretend you like it. It's freezing. But it is so good and it's so exhilarating. And it's got us even more pumped to do this, the brothers, isn't it?
100%. So we want to incorporate that like later down the line. Like if we can get people together when we're allowed and get out and do like a brothers meetup and a cold water dip. Yeah. How good would that be?
Oh, it'd be so good, wouldn't it?
So we actually started our day by doing that. Like we don't want to come in here now and be like, oh, we're training and we do cold water therapy.
Yeah.
But like the benefits of it and like the rush we get, like we literally this morning we were just like coming out of the water, just like
so pumped, just laughing. Oh,
yeah,
it's amazing.
It's so good. So yeah, so what we're gonna do is just introduce you to us, tell you a bit about our backstories and where, you know, what's happened in our lives to get us to this point, just so you can get a feel for it. We won't go in deep with our stories, and each episode we're going to sort of knuckle down on a specific part of our depression and anxiety, just to get you familiar with, you know, what's happened to us.
Yeah, as in it'll be a general topic where we'll just use our own experiences, but hopefully, it'll kind of like, maybe it'll enlighten you, you know, because sometimes when you're in that dark place and stuff, it's hard to sort of see clearly. It's kind of like a cloud in front of your eyes, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
So kind of hopefully we're going to open your eyes a little bit and be like, you know, there's a way through, or, you know, it's not maybe as bad as you think it is in that moment. Yeah, all those sort of things, yeah.
Because we always have these conversations, don't you? Like things, even when you're just talking about things that are just doing your head in, they could just be day-to-day things. But yeah, we just thought we'll bring it to the podcast and we'll just air it out, and then hopefully you can laugh along and it'll make your day brighter. Who wants to go first? You wanna step up to the plate, mate?
Go on then. I am James O'Hanlon. I'm 33 years old. I think about that. I was literally calculating it before while you were downstairs. And 33. And well, when I was a kid, I didn't realise this until I was in my 20s, but when I was a kid, I did have quite a lot of OCD, flipping light switches on and off because I thought my parents would die, that sort of stuff. And it was quite extreme, and I never realised that until later in life. I thought of it as a normal thing, you know. But then I didn't really have anything going on until we went backpacking together when we were like, how old were we? 19, 20? Something like
20.
That. It was a long time.
We were 20 when we left, so that was 13 years ago.
Yeah, I was like, bloody hell. So that was great. That was probably the last time I remember being a totally sort of, I felt like a free person, you know, free of any mental sort of burdens or anything like that, you know what I mean? And but yeah, after that then, it was like my first relationship sort of ended, and it was like, and then there was the holiday blues on top of that from coming back to the UK, and that's what kicked off my depression. And then over the next 10 years, well, more now, but it just sort of kept snowballing over that time. And little name drop there, little hint of the episode. and then it just, I've gone through, you know, anxieties, depressions, you know, anger and sadness and self-hatred and regret. I mean, I can't think of anything that any sort of mental health ailment that hasn't affected me, I think, over these years. And then it all culminated
That's right.
in
right.
in the last, I think it was almost, was it a year ago or less than a year ago, and it all ended in, you know, feeling very suicidal. I mean, that was always sort of like, you know, on the plate sometimes, but it was just sort of felt a bit more real. And that's when it kind of got a bit more serious and sort of time to take control of that. And that's kind of what the brothers became then as well, you know, going from there then. So yeah, so that's me. I'll go into detail later.
Yeah.
So what about you?
My name's Craig Holmes. I'm also 33 years of age from South Wales. And I was always a bit of an angry teenager, but never sort of saw any signs of like depression or anything like that. And yeah, the first proper trip I took away backpacking was with James and to Australia, and it was class because it was the first time we'd been away. I'd always wanted to travel, and then after we did Australia, we went to New Zealand, and I think the catalyst for my depression, my sadness, was breaking my neck. So I broke my neck in 2009. I was extremely down after it, even though I thought I wasn't, because I lost the use of my arm. So for 6 months, I was trying to sort of recover. I couldn't work for about 7 months. I ended up getting into a lot of debt, and then I decided to go to university. And whilst I was there, I developed serious depression and loneliness. And that carried through for a few years then. I was still in debt, working jobs that I hated. And kind of what I realized was I was playing the victim. And I know that can sound a bit harsh, but I think that is part of a pattern that happens when you feel that low. You're like, why is this happening to me? So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot of incidents that made it worse.
So yeah, so we're only giving very brief things of what we've been through, just so we can sort of say to you, almost like we've got some grounds to say where we're coming from, and we've been through a huge array of different emotions and mental health problems and stuff. So, but over the episodes, we'll just, they'll probably crop up a bit more then when we're giving examples and stuff of our experiences, with certain topics and stuff, So yeah, that'll do for now.
That'll do.
Save the good stuff for later.
So today's episode is specifically about, we're titling this Snowballing. So this is a pattern that we both recognise that we do. So we thought this would be a good place to start, because I feel like when you are experiencing mental health problems, one of the things that happens is you will go down a path of snowballing. Your emotions will snowball. So it starts off, I feel shitty. And then your pattern follows, well, I'm just going to lock myself away. And then it just grows and it grows and it grows and it gets worse. And sometimes you don't realize it's happening.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part about it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think because when you're in that place as well, and it's hard to notice it for yourself, is you'll start looking at things then that are happening. Maybe even if it's as simple as, you drop something on the floor, do you know what I mean? Or you spill something. But because you're already in that place then, you just start seeing everything as of course it happened to you. Do you know what I mean? Of course I spilled my drink on this day. Do you know what I mean? Because life is shit for me. Do you know what I mean? And everything's going wrong for me. Do you know what I mean? And it's these little actions that, even though they seem like such small things, or maybe it's hating on someone else, someone's being a bit noisy with their music, whatever, I don't know, all these little things, it seems quite innocent to just be bitter about something, but sometimes they do all add up, and before you know it, there's bigger things that are bringing you down then, and so it's trying to catch it early, I think, as well, is a big thing, and try not to let those little things. That's something that helps me a lot now, is I try to not get annoyed by things that are out of my control. Do you know what I mean? Because I remember when I was, younger, or in my teens, or even in my 20s, and it's kind of like that hating an inanimate object. Do you know what I mean? Like something, I'll hit my toe or something, and I'm just like, you're thinking it did it to me on purpose. Yeah. And I'm so angry, and I just wish the worst on that table. Do you know what I mean? It's just the table.
The worst table I've ever met.
It's such a horrible table. Do you know what I mean?
The table's like that, flipping you off.
So it's things like that I think for me now it's really important to catch. But then obviously, like you said, you can get into that place where you lock yourself away. And you don't want to talk to people, or you don't want to make as much effort on texts, or maybe you read texts the wrong way, and that can all get very dodgy. It can all get very dodgy in the sense, it can get worse, and it can get you to a horrible place. And
I think it is that one of the things I found when I was in that place is, like you said, not just getting annoyed at inanimate objects, getting annoyed at every situation that happens to you, and you think that you're like, why me? All the time is why me? One example was I was working a job that I hated, And then I went in, they asked me to do like a double shift. So I went in and parked my car in this place where I was like, I might get a ticket. Hopefully I won't. I worked the shift and then I got the ticket, which was like more than the shift. And I came back, I was like, for fuck's sake. I was so angry. Yeah. But it was like, you know, I put myself in that place. You know what I mean? I parked there. I didn't have to take the shift. Yeah, yeah. But it grows so much. And I think the problem with it is the anger just builds in you, doesn't it? You just like, and I think one of the things I've learned to do is to sort of take a deep breath and sort of be grateful for the things that you do have or the things that are good in your life. Because when you get to that place, you're just like, everything's shit. Yeah, yeah. You know, I hate my job. I got no money. Yeah. You know, nothing's going on. The weather's shit. But instead of doing all that, you just go, well, what am I grateful for? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Or
what can you do instead? You know, weather's shit, but maybe there's something you can do. Sometimes I always used to think like, oh, I wish I could just sit home and play PlayStation all day and not have to feel like I have to go anywhere. And then like when the sun's not out and it's raining, you know, it's easy to look at that and think, oh, fucking shit day.
Yeah, yeah.
But then it's like, hey, you got the opportunity here to stay in and do what you want, or you got an excuse to stay and watch some movies in bed, you know, and not feel guilty about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Just feeling guilty about doing nothing is something that brings you down a lot sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah. And also it can snowball in the sense that, like we talked about when we were backpacking, and that when I first started to get down, and how you actively are trying to make it worse for yourself in like it's like you want to be more depressed. You're happy in the depression. It's weird. So when we were there, we were in New Zealand, and I was spent a lot of the days very upset, and I'd never dealt with anything like this before as well. So I didn't really. Like nowadays, you know, when I was down, I'd try and hide it, or I'm quite good at holding it in now or putting on a face. Do you know what I mean? Things like that. But back then, it was just like, didn't know what to do sort of thing, you know? So I spent my nights crying and stuff where, you know, we were in a tent, we were sleeping in a car, whatever we were doing. But I'd be listening on my headphones. I was saying this, like constantly listening to Ray LaMontagne or whatever. And it was like this, he's just got some of the saddest music and I'm purposely listening to this sad music because I want it to make me feel sad and make me feel sadder. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you are not helping yourself doing that. And so like now, obviously I've learned, you know, put some good music on, obviously, to pick you up. But it's little things like that as well, where you can make yourself snowball by actively chasing that sadness. You're almost trying to justify feeling sad. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're trying to prove as if you were in a movie, as if someone's watching you. And you're like, well, I can't go ahead and put some good music on because, well, God forbid someone thinks I'm not that sad.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like I need to do everything I can to make sure I'm justified in being this sad, you know?
It's like, you're just uncomfortably numb and you literally like making friends with misery. You're like, I am miserable, so I'm going to watch a sad film that's going to make me feel sad because that's how I am now. That's me. And I'm going to listen to sad music and I'm not going to talk to anyone. Yeah. And the other really dangerous part about that is you get so comfortable in that misery that you don't want to get out of it. And it's not like you're fighting it. It's not like you're going, oh, maybe I shouldn't listen to this song. You're like, that sad playlist is going on, mate. Yeah,
and you just accept that that's who you are. Like, I think for the longest time, that's what made depression so hard for me, is I just accepted that, you know, some people's brains are super smart, some people's brains, whatever, good at things, bad at things, and I just figured my brain is just one of the brains that was unlucky, and it's a depressed brain, and it's a sad brain, do you know what I mean? And I was just unhappy all the time. And, and don't get me wrong, I'm, you know, like Craig said at the beginning of this podcast, we're in no way cured. There is no cure. You know, it's about managing it and noticing these signs, like we're saying now, so that you don't increase it or make it worse for yourself, you know?
Yeah, I think as you get older, you learn to sort of manage it a lot better. Yeah, one of the things we used to say before, because me and James used to work together in a few jobs. And one of those jobs was working PPI in a bank, doing like payment protection insurance claims, and somehow we managed to get away with not doing much in there. But we used to have these long conversations.
We did nothing.
We did nothing.
Taking those banks for everything we did. Literally, we were reading Stephen King books on the computer. Yeah. PDFs.
We found a way of downloading them and doing zero work. So yeah, our days are consumed with just having conversations, and one of those conversations was there were people, there's people all over the world like it, but there was people in the office who would come to work, they were buzzing to be in work, not buzzing, but they were comfortable. Mm-hmm. They were happy just working towards the weekend and having a 2 week holidays a year. And they were so content with that. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. This is not me saying that this is a bad thing. But we were saying, like, the conversation was, we would always say we're so jealous of those people to have those brains, to be happy to do that. Happy
with what we felt was mundane stuff, but to them it's not mundane. It's obviously perspective, but
it's perspective. I was
jealous of that.
It is perspective, but I feel like it's also the way, it also comes down to the way your brain works. Yeah, right, because my brain would never be satisfied with the mundane lifestyle of doing that. So but it is a question, like, would you swap though? Do you know what I mean?
No, I always used to think that, like you said, I used to look at the people standing by the water cooler or whatever you call it. And
James used to like watch those people and go, look, it's so fucking annoying.
Yeah, I did, and I was so angry at them, but it was because I was so jealous, because they could just stand there and go, all right, love, yeah. Do you watch Strictly on the weekend? And obviously there's nothing wrong with doing those things.
You asked me that just now, didn't
you? There's nothing wrong with doing those things, but it wasn't things that I liked doing. And I could never stand there and have a conversation that I felt didn't have some good meaning to it or sustenance.
Yeah.
But that's just because that's my brain. But I would be so jealous of these people, because I wished I could just have... I wish I didn't see the world through my eyes. Do you know what I mean? I wish I could see it in a bit more of a calmer way, or a more satisfied way. You know what I mean?
But I think you're saying you wish, but it's a gift and a curse.
No, of course.
Do you know what I mean? The conversations we have are so enlightening, and they're so deep and meaningful. Whereas,
people listening to this now going, nah. Yeah, I've got a clue, mate.
Yeah, talking utter breeze, mate. Talking shite. Another good tip is do the exact opposite of what you intend to do when that mood clicks in. Because you sometimes it starts like, oh, well, I'm having a shitty day. Maybe sometimes you just wake up. Sometimes I just wake up and I don't feel good. Yeah. So I'm like, there's two options: sit on my phone and stay in bed, or lay in my bed and just think about the day and get more anxious about it, or get up and do something. And I always try and do the complete opposite, because if I get up and have a stretch or get some breakfast and a coffee or something like that, I'm always like, oh, well, that's the first step. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas the alternative is spiral and snowball, which is what we've been talking about.
Yeah. Well, last year, I think I said to you when I started, so for the first time since I felt like this, I saw a therapist for the first time. And Graham said one day, he said, why don't, because I was at a point where I was just like, because you arranged it for me. I was in such a low place, and Craig was worried about me, and he managed to arrange for me to see this therapist through Big Moose, who are a charity in Cardiff, and they're amazing. I literally owe them my life. But but he said to me, because at first I was really like, I went into this therapy thinking, I'm just going to try and outsmart him all the time. I literally was like, I'm not going into it thinking I'm going to let this guy help me. I was going into it thinking I can't be helped. So I'm just going to try and combat everything he says and be like, nah, actually. Do you know what I mean? And I did do that for a couple of sessions, I felt. And but then he said in the end, where I was a bit like, but what if I don't want to be happy? What if I don't want to change, blah, blah. And he said, well, just try one day for me where you just do the opposite. Like you said, just do the opposite to what your brain's telling you to do. Just do the opposite for one day. See how it goes. And I did. And it was groundbreaking, because it was surprisingly easy to do the opposite just for one day, because you sort of looked at it as a task, like a challenge, as opposed to trying to change your whole mindset. And I think that's such a scary, big, like unachievable thought, to think you're just going to change your whole thought process. Do you know what I mean? For good. So just doing it for one day was so helpful. So I would recommend that to anyone, wake up and try and do the opposite. I mean, to what the bad part of your brain is saying. If your brain is saying like, oh, go down and eat a healthy meal, don't go, nah, fucking McDonald's. If whatever the bad side of your mind is telling you, do the opposite. And that was amazing for me. It was incredible, because like you said, when you wake up, and more often than not actually, not anymore. But there's many mornings where you just wake up and you just, for some reason, you feel shit. I don't know why. You haven't even had a chance to think. And you just feel shit. But yeah, on those days, going down and just grabbing your breakfast and stuff, because you're stopping that snowball straight away. Because I could wake up on those days and I don't want to turn my phone on. I get anxious about turning it off airplane mode because I know there might be a message come through and then I got to reply. And do you know what I mean? All this thinking straight away and it hasn't even happened.
Yeah.
But by going down to breakfast, it's not like, I think it helped breaking things down into smaller things for me. So I didn't think of, okay, well, I'll go for breakfast, maybe have a stretch. I didn't think of that as like, okay, well, I've got to do the whole day good now. But as long as I just did that one thing and I went and had breakfast, at least then later, even if I went back to bed or I sat there feeling shit still, I didn't have to feel shit about not having eaten yet. Do you know what I mean? Or not having made a slight effort. Do you know what I mean? Because not eating would be something I'd feel shit about, because then the day can go by and you don't eat. So yeah, just doing these little things and catching these little things before they snowball. Because it's amazing how just not going for breakfast or not having your coffee or stretch or walk or whatever you like to do in the morning, making your bed, like I tried to make my bed like that Navy SEAL video said. I try to do that because it's not like my bed needs to be made, but it's just something to focus your mind on. And also,
because the point he makes in that is if you can go about and do whatever you do in the day, but when you come home, you see your bed and it's made. So you feel like at least accomplished for that. As well, you know? Yeah,
so that's it. So because snowballing really is, like, the whole concept of it is just all these things building up. You just build up until it's too big. That's literally what it is going on about. That's why it's called snowballing. And so it's so easy to underestimate the little things like making your bed or going for having some breakfast or just maybe not sitting on your phone on Instagram, or if you know it's making you feel bad, if you're on there and you genuinely feel great and it's doing something for you, whatever. But it's so easy to think that it's not important to do those little things or change those little things. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
But it's all part of the start of the snowball, because before you know it, if I do that and then I stay in bed and I don't eat, if I don't eat, I'm gonna get tired and my mind's gonna struggle, and before you know it, then I just don't want to talk to people, I don't want to get out of bed or whatever, you know, and before you know it, then you're thinking the worst thoughts, and then when you're thinking the worst thoughts, you're thinking, oh, why am I thinking the worst thoughts again? And then you start going through the whole, oh, I'm in a shit place, and
it just goes crazy. And goes and goes.
So you've got to catch it.
The one thing I do, which is like, I do this every morning, is I set an alarm, and then as soon as the alarm goes off, I do the 5-second rule. So you count down from 5, instead of, because don't count, if you count up, I don't know what it is, but when you count down, it's a complete game changer. Count down from 5 and just get out of bed, because it's like a scientific thing. It's proven within 5 seconds, your brain is going to try and convince you to do the easiest thing. And that's the other scary thing about snowballing, is your brain's looking for the easiest way. And the easiest thing to do is to stay in bed. So if you count down from 5, you skip that whole section of your brain trying to talk you out of it. So count down, and it works for anything. If you're just up and it's the middle of the day and you're sat down and you can't get motivated and you think, oh, maybe I should go and do some washing or go to the shop for some food, do the 5-second rule, count down from 5 and just get up, and then you're moving then, and it helps loads.
Yeah, I suppose I do something similar in a way, but instead of counting down, I kind of put myself onto this like autopilot, just for a moment, where it's like, if I'm not sure if I want to go to the gym, I'm not sure if I want to go for a walk or get dressed or whatever it is, or get in the shower, I'll just, for a couple of seconds or a minute, just go into autopilot of doing the actions, putting your socks on and just one thing at a time, doing those things and not thinking why I'm doing it or what it means at the end, or it means, oh, fuck, I'm going to have to do a whole workout now. Don't think about that stuff. Do you know what I mean? I'm just going on autopilot, and then I'm a little bit closer. And and those things can often get me, oh, well, at least I'm in the kitchen now. At least I'm, something's already in the microwave, so I might as well eat it,
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so.
I mean, if you got that far, surely you're going to eat that anyway. Just warming it up and walking away.
Yeah, good point.
Okay. Put the food in, turn the microwave on, go back to bed.
Fuck that shit.
Yeah, going back to your story about when you had the session booked with Graham, because I was worried about you, man, honestly. Like, so to just sort of tell James's story a little bit more, he was in Hong Kong at the time. You were PTing over there. You'd been living there for how many years?
Well, actually, I wasn't actually working over there. So, because there was any government officials working.
He was
working out
just training his mates. He was, so they owed him money from the past.
So I was in Hong Kong making a living.
But you were there in like a bad time anyway, because there was the riots and stuff like that, and you had some
COVID had just started.
COVID started.
Obviously, it started in China, didn't it? So
yeah, and he was just in a really bad place. And I remember you calling me up one day, and I was just like, James, you need to come home, mate, because you were so down. I could just tell you were just not in a good place. So James came back, and I think this was probably at one of your worst points, wasn't it?
Oh, it was absolutely the worst point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was by far my worst point. It was because it was a culmination of the last 10 years, and all I could think about was how the last 10 years have been so hard, depression wise. And it just felt a bit like it's not getting better. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to get better.
Yeah. And I could see that. And we'll try and get my brother on at some point on this podcast, because he's had his own sort of battles with mental health and suicidal thoughts and stuff. But so me and my brother took James for a coffee, and I remember we were trying to talk you around, and then the things you were saying, like we were kind of sometimes looking at each other, and I was just like, oh fuck, not because we couldn't believe it, because we were so worried. We were trying so hard to try and talk you around, but you were just so far from that. You were convinced. You were just like, this is my only way out. So then when you had the appointment book with Graham, I remember you saying like, I know what he's going to try and do. And you were like so set that you were going to like outsmart this guy. You were just like, I got this. Don't worry, lads. I'll come back with the same result. And obviously that's not what we wanted. Yeah. But it's mad, isn't it? That your brain was like, it got you to that point where you were just like, this is me now.
Yeah, it was, it was real low. And once that thought of suicide had come into my head, I wasn't then thinking so much about all the depression and the sad stuff before. I was literally just thinking about suicide, and I was letting the thoughts of that snowball, and they were just snowballing from the fear of thinking about it, and like almost like this, there was this sadness that came with the fact that I knew I was thinking about it, and it made me so sad at first because it was such a scary thought. And then you kind of, that just becomes like depression and like these bad habits that maybe we've all picked up, maybe your morning routines, whatever. It just becomes normal. And it did. And suicide, and even now, like, it's weird, like suicide, I was thinking about this the other day, how suicide, the thought of it almost became normalized to me because I thought about it 24/7. I couldn't sleep, so I was thinking about it, all night, all day. And the whole thing just wasn't that scary anymore. And that's when then it got to the point where I spoke to you, or where you were speaking to me, and that's why it was so shocking for you, because it wasn't, I was thinking how to someone else is such a shocking and scary thought.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that shock and fear and the dramaticness of it had sort of, I had wiped it from my brain because I'd thought about it so much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why I think it was such a worry in the end, because then it just turned into, instead of thinking about it and thinking about how shit I felt, it turned into planning it. Do you know what I mean? And literally, and it's hard to research, it's not something that Google is trying to allow you to do. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, which is a good thing. So it's really hard to do. And I literally was just, honestly, I was just going over so many techniques and things, and just the most painless way I could think of, or the most quick way, or the peaceful way, whatever. Do you know what I mean? And I did research properly, you know what I mean? I was probably reading so many articles, anything I could find, any threads, whatever. And again, though, that was just a case of snowballing. That was a huge case of snowballing.
Yeah. That's like the extreme of it.
It was, because I'd let the last 10 years snowball anyway, by never really, not just not figuring it out or not sorting it out, because I did try many times, but I just don't think I knew how. I never really found the right tools. Do you know what I mean? And then once the suicide thoughts just come into my head, they snowballed more and more. And it just, like I said, just became more and more normalized. And then it was planning. And then it was just like, it was the craziest thing. And the only thing that kept me going was the fact that because I feel like I'm quite a logical person. And so I did always just think, well, whenever I would think about it, sometimes I would think about it and I would be numb, and I wouldn't show any sort of obvious emotion when I was thinking about it. But other times I would get really upset and I would cry and I'd feel like I was really at the end. And it was this weird, I remember being in the car, and me and my mum went to go to the gym. We were in separate cars. And then she came to talk to me through the car window, And I can't remember why, but she said to me, "Are you okay?" or something like that. And I just started crying straight away. And she knew something was up anyway. So then straight away she was like, "Come on, let's just go home. You go home." And so and I was just bawling my eyes out straight away. And I don't even know why. And then we went to drive home. She was ahead of me though. I pulled over at one point because I was crying too much. And I was just stopped on this side road. And I remember, and this is really stuck in my head. I just remember because that was the point where I was crying so much and I was making these noises that I had never heard come out of me when I was crying before. Shit, and I thought to myself, like, I've never cried this way before. And I thought, and to me, I was thinking, well, that means something. That means this is the saddest I've ever, I mean, uncontrollably sad. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it was at that point, it was this strange feeling. I can feel it now where it's weird. It's like, it's hard to say, like, it's trapped. It's like trapped in, imagine you had pain in a body part and you can't do anything about it. You just got, if you're in extreme pain, you got to wait it out sort of thing. And that's kind of what I felt like I was doing. I was kind of crying to the point where I just wanted to get away from myself, but there was nowhere to go. Do you know what I mean? I felt like I was trapped in it. And that was why I was thinking, like, there's no other way to go because I can't get away from this sadness. There's only one way to turn it off. Do you know what I mean? For good.
Fuck, man, that's crazy.
And that was like that. I remember that being the point where I was properly like, there's no other choice. There's no other choice. Absolutely. But in the end, there was other choices, obviously. And I'm so glad, we got through it and stuff. And that was because of a combination of just the compassion you showed and that you sort of took it on to find help for me and stuff, and not everyone's going to have that there for them, which is, sad, but that's why we kind of want to be here as well for sure. Because obviously if anyone was in that position, I'm here to talk to anyone. I don't, it doesn't matter, So I think my point was just saying how it just snowballed to that point, and once I was there, it felt very hard to get away from it. You know what I mean? And,
I can't even imagine, mate. Yeah, and the thing for me, like going back to the coffee shop with my brother, what was scary is that my brother had suicidal thoughts, and he told me like quite early into that happening to him. And for my brother, it hadn't become normalized. He was so scared of his own thoughts that he didn't know what to do other than to luckily reach out to me. Whereas you had been living with it for so long, it had become so normal that when you told us, it was just like you were telling us you'd been to the shop to buy a bag of crisps. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, this is what I'm gonna do. And we were just like, fucking hell. It was scary, man. But I'm so stoked that we were able to jump in, because like seeing you now, and like I know we said in the beginning we'd have walks and chats about how we felt, but seeing you now compared to like early last year, man, what a difference.
Mad difference, I know.
And you've met Jess as well now, which is amazing.
Amazing, yeah. It's such a difference, and I hope that anyone out there that has whatever stage of depression they're in, everyone says it will get better. And I remember like Stephen Fry quote where he was saying about, it's like there's rainy days, but the sun will always come back out. Even if it is raining for a year, it will come back out. Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
And it feels so, but why do I have to wait for that? Or I don't believe it will. But it really does. But it won't do it on its own. You do have to take steps, and you got to stop that snowball. You know, and you got to do those things. And things did turn around. You know what I mean? I'm just so great with where I am now. I'm not saying I feel great. I'm not saying I feel fine, I'm cured and that. Yeah. Because the thing with suicidal thoughts as well is that because I normalized it so much, it can easily pop into my head when I feel bad, but not to the extent where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. Do you know what I mean? But it pops into my head as like a solution now, and it because it doesn't scare me because I normalized it. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's a shame that I got to that point where it did in a way, and I hope that we can stop other people getting to that point. Yeah. But the point I want to make is that I did get to that point, and I'm still doing okay. And those thoughts don't necessarily completely go away, but you are in a better place to deal with them as well. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, for sure. Because I was dealing with them for like a year. When I was in Hong Kong, I was already thinking about it and maybe thinking of possibilities and plans and all that sort of stuff, but then coming home and seeing that someone cared and there's people out there that are in the same position. Yeah. Helped big time. Really helped big time. Yeah, it was crazy.
I'm glad, mate. I'm glad you came back. But yeah, I think just like you said, to people, it's that silver lining. There is always one, like no matter, because yours is an extreme example. Do you know what I mean? You never attempted it, luckily. But if you can come back from that, and there's people out there who are just starting to feel rubbish, you've got to nip it in the bud as soon as you can. Like, even if you start feeling like, if you feel down or anxious or something's developed that isn't normal to you, you need to reach out to somebody or go to your GP. Obviously, if it's that extreme, you need to go and see your doctor for some help. But for you, the first thing was calling me up and, just having a chat with me. And luckily, we figured out a solution for you to come back. So
yeah. And I think when it comes to any type of depression, not just suicidal thoughts, but depression, anxiety, whatever it is, it makes you sad because it's kind of like it's telling you that you don't want to be that way.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Because if you did want to be that way, or it was normal, you wouldn't be sad.
You wouldn't be sad about it.
Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
Exactly.
So you're telling yourself that really I don't want to be like this, and that's why then I can't help but cry on the phone to you or something. When I'm down, because really I don't want to be that way. I just don't see how to not be that way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that's why speaking out as well is a big deal, even like as you said about speak to your doctor. Yes, absolutely, speak to your doctor but there's also, like they say, the Samaritans, but I never went for that. I saw it always comes up on Google whenever you search anything like that, and it comes up. It wasn't the type of thing I thought I was going to do, but telling anyone, even if you just maybe were just trying to like shock people into how bad you're feeling, as in how bad you're feeling, you want people to know. I don't care if you're doing it for that reason, because someone's going to then help you and do something about it. Do you know what I mean? You got to change those daily routines, and that's a big thing for me now, making the small changes to make sure I never get to that end again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what I was doing at the time was doing none of those little things, and I would literally not eat for like a day or two or something, and I would in Hong Kong, and I would stay in bed, and I would keep the curtains closed, and it would just be dark, and I'd watch movies maybe, and I would literally just stay in bed for 2 days, and I wouldn't eat or do anything. Do you know what I mean? I barely drink water, and that's just the next part of the snowball, and it just gets worse and worse, and your brain is never going to be healthy enough to get through it at that stage then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Unless you step in and do something.
Well, I was watching a TED Talks a while back, and it was on depression, and this guy was saying, if you break your leg, it'll send a signal to your brain to say your leg's broken, there's pain there, it needs to be fixed. So he's like, depression is a way of your brain sort of telling your body, you're telling yourself that something's wrong and you need to make a change. And it's not always the case. It's not always like there's like, a few things that happen in your life and then you're at a point where you need to change, you need to make a lifestyle change. Sometimes it can just happen, through chemical imbalance or things like that. But I think for you, like, you were in Hong Kong, you were in like the box apartment with no windows as well. You had the riots, you had Corona, you were lonely. So all of those things added up. Do you know what I mean? So that was on top of you feeling depressed for all those years as well. And yeah, I guess, it's making that change. So you've come home now, you're in a better environment, you've got people around you, your family's there. Yeah. So all those things add up, don't they? Do you know?
Yeah. And some people aren't just feeling bad. Some people have had stuff happen to them.
Through trauma or
traumas and stuff that have happened that were out of their control. And it's natural to feel bad when those things happen. But the important thing again is snowballing is still so important there, because like maybe you can't change what happened. Maybe you even feel responsible. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, that's done. You know what I mean? And you can. It's okay to feel sorrow and sadness about these things and keep them in your memory, but it's also important to still try and keep up some of the good habits that are going to stop you sort of sinking too much into whatever experience you've gone through, and try and get a way out of this. Because if you have gone through some traumatic experience, or maybe you've gone through some relationship breakup or something like that, it's bringing you down, and it's just logical to think that if you're going through a bad time and you're just going to sit there in bed and you're not going to eat, it's not going to get better. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It isn't. So, but I'm not saying just get up and have the best time of your life. Just try to just do some opposite things to what your brain's telling you to do. And
going back to sort of, recurring patterns, and sometimes, something will happen where maybe me and Amy will argue, and my go-to is like, go to your room. I don't want to speak to anybody. I'll just, sit and wallow. But I know in hindsight that speaking to someone always makes it better. Even if I just say what I've been saying, with Amy, and I say it out loud, or I speak out loud. We talked about this a lot, like speaking your thoughts out loud. Sometimes you can see how irrational you're being when you physically say it, you're like, oh shit, that's actually mad.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, like, when I feel like that, my mum will recognize it and she'd be like, you all right, Craig? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And she's like, do you want a cup of tea? And I'm like, go on then. And then I talk to my mum, and when I say it out loud, I'm like, it's not actually that bad. Do you know what I mean? But I think when you internalize it, that's when the snowballing happens inside your head. And it's something you can't see, but you're just like, well, everything's shit. I don't want to speak to anyone, this, that, and the other. And then the patterns of sad music and all the rest of it just follows. So I think the key piece of advice is talk to anyone if you feel shit, and do the opposite of what you would normally do. Yeah.
Because when you're thinking stuff as well, I think we don't always recognize when we're actually thinking through a thought and processing it and seeing why it is shit or why it feels shit. And when our brain or our mind is literally just feeling an emotion. And then we're finding it hard then to separate us just feeling this negative emotion and the subject we're thinking about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so sometimes, like, if you had a thing with Amy and you were sitting in your room and you hadn't spoke to anyone, you got all these things going through your head, but you haven't always got thoughts necessarily fully going through there, or at least things that relate to it. But you're going to have these negative feelings. In a moment of silence, you're going to think, I fucking feel shit. You know what I mean? But really, you haven't given yourself a chance to sort of say, well, why are you feeling shit? Or why do you have to feel shit? Do you know what I mean? You just automatically, you're like, right, well, I feel shit because my brain tells me I feel shit. You know, so I think speaking as well is a good way of removing that sort of like, I can't think what the word is, this sort of like, this concept of just emotion, or not concept, of course, this feelings of just emotion, to actually just saying facts and logic out loud and actually hearing it for what it is. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
for sure.
Because I think our emotions cloud it too much for us to sort through it in our own mind.
Yeah, and I think it's like you are recognizing you're not your thoughts.
Yeah,
your thoughts are thoughts, and sometimes you'll have intrusive thoughts or things that you don't want to be there. But it's knowing when they come how to just bat them away and just be like, oh, it's just a thought. It's not me. It's not.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and that's another thing to sort of try and take on is that sometimes you're going to feel shit and you just need to think, well, I feel shit now. What makes me feel good? You know, I need some endorphins. I need to do whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
And if that means not thinking of any big picture stuff, and it literally is making a meal, eating a meal you like, listening to a song you like, even if it's the next 3 minutes, to just change it around just a little bit, it's still something it's worth doing. Yeah. You know, you don't have to think, I'm not losing the fat I want to lose, or I'm not like meeting the girlfriend, boyfriend I want to meet. Do you know what I mean? They're two big picture things. Do you know what I mean? And those things are never going to be in the right place anyway if you're not either. Do you know what I mean?
One of my snowballing sort of examples was when I was in university, because I was my anxiety was like bad then. I was in a lot of debt. And, so my student loan would come in, it would kind of just pay off my debts and I'd be left with no money. And I remember I got to the point where I went up to like the student council to ask them, because I think they gave you like an allowance every week or whatever. And I went up to get my allowance, and I was like, said to the woman, is there any way I can get some more? Because I've got no money for my bills. And she was like, oh, I can't, I'm sorry. And she could see how upset I was. And she was like, oh, don't tell anyone. And she wrote me a check for like 120 quid and gave me that. And I was so grateful. But because I built up this anxiety and loneliness, and I was struggling to socialize because I was broke, I would just be in my room so often. And one of my sort of spiraling thoughts is I would think about my family a lot, and specifically my mum. I would worry about my mum, and I would worry that what if my mum died? And it's such an extreme thought, but I was so lonely and so worried, and I think the thought process is I wouldn't be able to deal with that if I lost my mum. So I'd call my mum up and I would tell her, and maybe not. I can't remember if I actually told her. I think I told her once, and I just burst into tears. And she was like, "Oh, Craig, you dickhead! What are you doing?" Do you know, my mum would never say dickhead. Just added that sausage for comedic value. Yeah. But yeah, that's the point where I got to. You know, your brain is a wild machine. It can literally just drive you to these places that you're just like, what is happening? Like in hindsight, now that's mental. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It is mental illness. Yeah. But yeah, it's knowing that I've been in that place as well, where I've
you know, really suffered, really hated the jobs that I've done, been in like a silly amount of debt as well. And I've been able to turn it all around by just, you know, setting some goals and just taking baby steps towards those goals as well. So yeah, I guess that's it for this week's episode.
Yeah, I think so. So just take some time to make little changes.
Love yourself. Yeah. Don't beat yourself up. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely don't beat yourself up, and don't be bogged down by goals. Because Craig loves a goal and it works for him.
Yeah.
I hate him. I tried for a while doing goals, and I'm just like, fair dues, I don't get much done. But I feel good.
Dave's like, what have you done today? I'm like, what have you done? He's like, I watched 6 films, played the PlayStation.
Sometimes.
But that's great though, because you're happy and you're content doing that.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm content just.
And I'm miserable because all I do is work.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, start with baby steps.
Yeah, and literally, maybe if you are listening and you think, you know, even if you don't feel like you're massively depressed right now, but you are someone who's just feeling a bit like lost or a bit lethargic or maybe just a bit strange because you're on lockdown now and stuff, you know, just try it tomorrow, or even today. Just do the opposite to what the negative side of your mind is telling you to do, just for a day, and just see how it goes.
See how it goes.
Might as well.
Got nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose.
So that is it, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in for the first ever Brothers podcast. Make sure you subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're listening, leave us a rating. If it's not 5 stars, we will come to your house and slap you about. Anything else to add, mate?
No, just I'm so glad we've done this first episode.
I know, mate.
I'm really nervous about it. But we got so many topics coming up now.
Yeah.
And they will cover all sorts, not just the extremes, but even simple things we were saying, like how to maybe control your anger, or maybe if you're socially anxious, do you know what I mean? And some things, because I've gone through that, you know, there's been so many times where I just wanted to go to the bathroom in a restaurant when I was out for like a meal with work people. I just wanted to cry. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah. So there's so many things we've both been through.
Yeah.
And we're just going to cover that now over the next, I don't know, 10 podcasts or something.
Yeah, definitely.
People listening, fucking 10, that's fucking 8.
That's way too many. But yeah, we have got some great subjects. So yeah, hopefully it's helped you out. And get us on Instagram as well. What are we now? The Brothers and the...
No idea, just the Brothers something. The Brothers podcast. I think we'll put everything as the Brothers podcast, shall we?
Yeah, I think we tried that, but it was taken. But I'll leave the link in the description on YouTube. And until next time.
The Brothers org.
No underscore, just org.
No underscore org. I don't know.
The Brothers Orgy on Instagram.
Wicked. See you all soon. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, hang on. I feel like I'm at the seaside.
Okay, should we play it for real?
Yeah.